Okay, thank you all for coming. I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Education special meeting dated April 3rd, 2025 at 6 p.m. for the new Hartford Board of Education. To start, please join me if you're able in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, thank you all to the Board of Education members. I know I sent a text on Tuesday night to try to get this meeting put together for today, and I know we have every member, including Deirdre, on the phone, so thank you very much for making this happen. This does allow us to be able to be prepared for whatever action this board determines we're going to take prior to the Board of Finance meeting on Tuesday, the 8th, where they will take action on the budgets that'll go to referendum. So Board of Education Chairman's report, I'm going to go through a few things here. I'll set up the meeting for today, and then we'll head right into our business for today, which is a discussion and any potential action on the 25-26 budget. So I'd like to start by acknowledging, as I did last meeting, all the communications that we've received from the community. I'm going to focus on the written communications we received, and then I'll talk about, again, everybody's been here for the communications and public comment at our meetings, but we'll talk a little bit about the public comment we heard when we were at the public budget hearing on Tuesday of this past week. So prior to today, I did acknowledge 25 communications to the board. Since our last meeting, we have had another 29 communications to the board. Again, they've all been forwarded to each of you. They will all be part of the meeting minutes in the record of our meeting. But to acknowledge those who wrote was Mary, and again, I apologize for butchering anybody's name, but Mary Coburn Ropke, Shelley McCoy, Kristen Bakula, April Pike, Shelley Lloyd, Greta Lindquist Merlino, Matt Flaherty, Haley Duttlinger, Ashley Cerudo, Garrett Cerudo, Dexter Cerudo, Marcia Jones, Peter and Essie Humphrey, Shannon Nicholas, Chris and Rena Sears, Jocelyn Kostak, Emily Bernard, Christine Holland, Anissa Zucker, Helen and Gary Tabaka, Aaron Phelan, Jennifer and Adam Mustercola, John Puz and Kate Humphrey, Kate and Rick Tripp, David Zucker, Roxanne Helt, Laura Polico, Crystal Champeau, and Mia Doyle are the 29 we received. So communications to the board regarding our 25-26 budget has been a total of 54 communications to the board have come in addition to the public comment that we've heard. So just quickly as an update to, and again, I'll ask Penny and Tom and Frank and Jeff to please contribute as well to Tuesday's public budget hearing. I'm going to say there were probably 30 to 40 in the room.
At least 40.
At least 40 in the room for the public hearing, specifically related to our local Board of Ed budget. I'm going to say there were probably 20 individuals who got up and spoke and provided their input against our budget. Many of them echoed what we've heard here at our meetings regarding many things such as the band program. There was many that talked about the school counselor and the need for it. Several that talked about White Memorial, talented and gifted, were really the major topics we heard in that meeting as we sat there and listened to everyone. There weren't many questions that came our way to Jeff or to the board. It was more comments and people who were behind or people who wanted to remove the eliminations that we have proposed in our current budget. So again, they echoed a lot of what we've already heard here. They echoed it to the Board of Finance, which is fantastic, and also to the Board of Selectmen. Both members, or at least two members, were there from the Board of Selectmen. Anything I missed on Tuesday? Anything you would add to that, guys? What's that? Music, yeah, band program. It was a major topic that came up over and over and over again.
They talked about consolidation. There was one or two comments.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. Yes, there were.
Combining the classrooms.
Yep, I would say that again, of everybody who spoke, which was 20 plus regarding our budget, there were two. It's fair to acknowledge there were probably two, maybe three that spoke about getting creative with our budget, talked about consolidation, and talked about, again, increasing classroom sizes. So again, there were a couple that did bring those topics up to us. Those topics are more long-range planning. It's nothing we can do for the 25-26 budget. So we have to keep that in mind.
Some other folks also mentioned fundraising, and as a Board of Education, we can't directly fundraise. We can't receive those revenues that way. A PTO or any other educational promoting type of business can certainly fundraise and then donate to the Board of Education. We have a policy of how to receive those monies, and then it would be determined here at the Board of Education level how to spend those. But we don't have the capacity nor the authority to fundraise. There was an example of buying a car and auctioning it off. We cannot do that as a Board of Education, just for clarity purposes for the public.
Thank you. So I don't know if there are any questions that anybody has, if you were able to be on virtually, or if you have any questions on what we just reported. But, you know, like I said, there was a lot of discussion about where we are with our budget, where we are as a town. You know, if you look at overall what was reported as a town, you know, it was shown that 80% of our town budget is education between Northwest Regional as well as here in our local. And I think the overall, as I recall, someone may check me on the number, the overall proposed increase, which includes town, Northwest Regional, and local budget, was around 5 and change.
5.37.
5.37 overall is what was proposed at the public budget hearing. That's not what's going to town referendum. That won't come until the Tuesday Board of Finance. So I'll end my budget, or the chair's report is just, again, thanking everybody. Thank you for people who came out and spoke. Thanking everyone for the letters and the community input that we received. It is all being taken under consideration, and tonight's meeting is just for that purpose, for preparation for the Board of Finance meeting on Tuesday. So moving into the 25-26 budget agenda item, and any discussion and action we as a board would like to take. I'll start by saying that we have an opportunity to do something, if we'd like to, as a board, do something prior to the meeting on Tuesday for their consideration. They all heard a lot of the same communications. All these 54 communications we received have all been shared with the Board of Finance. They've seen them all. And they sat there as a board on Tuesday night to listen to the public. So Jeff and I have had many different conversations over the last, month, but, more importantly, over the last week or so on potential things we could do as a board. But the first question is, as a board, do we want to move forward with what we have today, what we've adopted, or does the board want to reconsider what we've adopted and discuss something different?
I have a question about the process,
Sure.
because last year's budget went pretty smoothly, I think, right, compared to this.
Mhm.
So the numbers they were presenting, the Board of Finance, they're just sharing what different groups have sent to them. This is not, now the Board of Finance
That's correct.
could on the 8th take those and adjust them.
Yes, the Board of Finance had an opportunity at the prior meeting, right? They have to, as a Board of Finance, approve what goes to the public budget hearing, which they did in their prior meeting. They had opportunity back then to make adjustments, but they decided that what they received from Northwest Regional, what they received from the local board, and what they received from the town was enough to go to public budget hearing.
Does that mean that they were satisfied with those budgets?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I mean, again, I don't want to speak on their behalf, but it doesn't indicate that they were satisfied with the budgets.
And it doesn't mean that they were not satisfied.
Correct.
It just means they received those budgets.
Correct. They received them, and they thought that they were in a place that they could be passed on to public budget.
If you read the minutes for the last Board of Finance meeting before the public hearing on Tuesday night, you will see that a couple of Board of Finance members did say, we cannot support the 4.99. They did not like the 4.99% increase. Now, while they can go back to, they can write a letter to Region 7 saying that we don't like your percentage increase, but so far, in all the years I've taken the minutes on that board, Region 7 has never changed their budget. Because we're only 2 out of, I don't know, what is there, 10 members on the Board of Ed or something like that. They've never changed their budget. The town sometimes, he's been creative in changing his budget around. But they listened on Tuesday night. Normally, what they have done at a public hearing in previous years is everybody presents their budgets. After that meeting, then normally there's a Board of Finance meeting. And at that meeting, then they decide what they're going to ask the various boards to do. That has not happened the last couple of years. Instead, they've gone to that meeting that's coming up this coming Tuesday, and at that meeting, they will discuss what they're going to ask the town and the local Board of Ed to do. And I guess if they decide to send a letter to Region 7, they'll send a letter saying, you need to cut your budget, but like I said, they never do.
So I would like to, again, I'd like to start with, based on the public input we've received, based on what I've heard at the town hearing, based on the conversations we have, I would like to have further discussion regarding our current budget, what we've proposed and adopted today. So I'm going to make a motion, as the chair, to rescind our 25-26 adopted budget of $10,325,026 for further action and discussion.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by myself, a second by Tim Russell, to rescind our adoption of the 25-26 budget that we sent to the Board of Finance. Is there any discussion on that?
Are you sure you can do that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Now, do we have to do that to if we kept the same number, to adjust within that budget? Or are
We
we
can have
only
that.
rescinding the 499? And do we always have the option to change?
I'm rescinding what we've adopted, right, for further,
Including the line items, right?
we'll have additional discussion. Yes, Tom?
Usually by this time in the process, we've been given direction by the Board of Finance, either keep it, it's good, or no, cut $200,000. We've yet to receive that because they, at the previous meeting before this past Tuesday, they were lacking some information they wanted. And so they sent it back just as is. And then last Tuesday, in the past, I remember they did have some discussion after the town, and they would tell the Board of Ed to cut it back. So there's been numerous opportunities for the Board of Finance to do that. They haven't done that. Now, again, that's not explicitly saying they like our number or they don't like our number. But to me, that's they're leaving the door open for some further discussion one way or the other. So I'm in favor of reviewing that number right now.
I don't think, though, you can, I'm not sure you can rescind it. I really don't think that you can. I don't think you can go over that 4.99. Like, you can't come back and say to them, well, we've changed our mind and now we want 527. I don't think you can do that. You might be able to go lower than 4.99.
My understanding is we can provide any budget that the Board of Ed adopts prior to public referendum.
But they've already accepted your 4.99.
They haven't
No,
accepted
they
it.
haven't
I just
accepted
said that.
Yeah, they've
They have
sent
yet
it
to,
public.
they have yet to make a motion in that board, as far as I know, to accept the Board of Finance. They had done that in the past. They didn't do it that night when there was no public comment, and they didn't do it this past Tuesday.
The motion that was made at a recent board meeting was that they were moving to accept the budgets presented by the town. It's the town and the local Board of Ed. No, it was Region 7 and the local Board of Ed at some meeting, and the town budget presented at this last Board of Finance meeting. Let me see if I can get online and get you that motion.
That-
I'm not gonna argue, you could be right, Pam. There's, as far as I understood, it was for presentation at the town meeting, which took place Tuesday. It wasn't a, yes,
That's
we
my
like the 4.99, we don't like the 4.99.
I know what you're
That's
saying.
as
That is
far
my
as,
understanding as well.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't think you can, but whatever.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Deirdre?
I raised my hand. I'm sorry.
Deirdre, you there?
Yeah, yes, I raised my hand.
Thank you.
Four again.
To review the budget again.
Motion passes 8-1-0. Okay.
so as far as I know, Tim, right, we don't have a solid budget because we don't have a bus number in there yet. So we don't even have a budget that is actually presentable to the public right now. Is that correct?
Well, here's what I'll set up, and these are, again, I have had conversations with Superintendent Sousa since our last meeting. So there have been some new information and new developments regarding, we'll start with the bus contract. So the bus contract has been issued to us. It has been signed today. So it was signed today. That indicates a savings on that line item within our what we currently had. That savings is to the tune of $120,000. In addition to that, we have the news that we have the retirement of Superintendent Sousa's administrative assistant, Janet Terenzi. She has been with the district for 20 years. Is at a higher scale than we would hire as a replacement. So we would anticipate and project a lower salary with a savings to our budget of $15,000. In addition to that, we've been discussing and looking into the non-lapsing account. We have $114,000 in the original non-lapsing account. Call it 54 of that, or 55 of that is earmarked currently for the current projected overage for the 25-26 school year, 24-25 school year. The balance of that, there's potential, and there's been discussion of, can we use that for, to offset costs within our current budget? One of the things that Jeff and I have spoken about is there's clearly major variability with outplacements. We project, Superintendent Sousa and his administration project what they can based on what they know year by year, and we get shocked, right, like we did this current year, and what will go into next year. So if the board decides that we want to use the balance of that $114,000, call it another $60,000, right, we can vote to apply that $60,000 to our current budget. 26-27 budget for the proposal. 25-26 years. Yeah. So those are the things that, as we've gone through and Jeff and I have spoken about over the last few days, trying to determine how we eliminate and send a budget to the community and let the community make their decision. We went forward with a 4.99% increase. We did that to be fiscally responsible, but we've also, again, this is my opinion, we've heard from the community that the impact to the students is far worse than the increase in the taxes, from what we've heard. Again, that's based on the 100+ people we've heard from, right? Not based on the 7,000 taxpayers within our town. But in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I believe that we should listen to that and let our taxpayers make the decision. So in preparation for tonight, I did ask our superintendent to go back to the proposed eliminations based on the board. First, I think we have to take action if we want to use the $60,000 from the non-lapsing. We have to take action on that. But I've asked our superintendent to go back and relook at the eliminations based on having those funds available and what he and his administrative team would present back to this board. So I'd like to hear from Jeff. Once again, we should first talk about the non-lapsing. So does anybody, again, I'll make a motion to use $60,000 of the non-lapsing account and apply it to the 25-26 budget against the variability in the outplacement costs projected in our 25-26 budget year. So we have a motion by myself, a second by Kristen. Do we have any discussion?
Can you restate that for me?
Was it 65,000?
60,000. We have $114,000 in a non-lapsing account. We have a projected $50 to $55,000 overage in our current year. So I'm saying that the delta, that $60,000, my motion is to apply that against the projected outplacement cost for the 25-26 school year due to the variability of that. So it's, again, we had said last time we shouldn't be using those funds for recurring costs, but variable costs, right? Again, we know it's back and forth. They're up and down, right? Whether they're in district, out of district. So that's my motion.
And the effect would be to free up 60,000
Correct.
in the budget.
Correct.
And if I'm correct from your numbers, with the bus and the hiring of someone who's lower salary, that's 135,000, right? Okay.
I don't think it's a good idea to be taking money out of that account, even though it is a variable expense. It's not as a variable expense as a leaking roof, or it's an expense that's going to be there, and it varies by how high it's going to go, in my opinion, not if it's going to disappear. And I think that taking that money out of that account is a Band-Aid approach to what we want to accomplish. I think if we can find other ways, I would prefer to do that before we start spending money out of an account that we kind of keep for other items than the balancing a budget. That's my opinion on that account.
Are there any risks or ramifications to essentially zeroing out that account? By
So
doing
the account, again, that's part of my thought process, and I didn't bring this up. That won't zero out our non-lapsing account. We voted two meetings ago to put in from our 2023-24 budget year the surplus of $107,000. So we're not depleting the account. $107,000 will remain. This 115 was built from probably 5 or more years ago, plus a little bit shortly thereafter. Was that original 115 or $114,000? But again, this doesn't deplete the account for those unknowns, right? That contingency that, Tom, as you talk about, if you have a leaky roof that you have to repair, or we have, emergency repairs that come up that we may need to revisit.
Can we look at other measures first before we decide to tap into that and make it a vote on that $60,000? Do we approach this budget from a different angle first before we do that work?
I'd be okay with that, sure. I'll pull back my motion for now.
She has to pull back for a second.
Okay with them? All right. So the other thing, again, as I thought about the other item that Superintendent Sousa and I also spoke about, was on the excess costs that we get from the state. We had been more conservative than Region 7 was. So if we align ourselves with what Region 7 is anticipating getting back, which I think is a fair assessment to do, we could also plan for some additional funds to the tune of, I don't know the numbers, but
$7,000 more.
7,000.
Sorry, that is to expect that the state this year is going to give us more money than we have
Next
next year.
next year.
Conservatively, we have conservatively estimated, based off of historical patterns, how much money they will reimburse us for outplacements.
And
We
we're,
went on the conservative side of that, and now we're saying we can be less conservative with that this year.
we're more conservative than Region 7 is what I'm saying. So if we align with what Region 7, the conservative Region 7's taken, and again, I would ask Superintendent Sosa to give us the percentages, right? Is what would we anticipate? What did the state, if you run the formula, what does the state say that we would get?
So at 70%, we'd get $127,000. That's at the same rate that Region 7 is projecting as well.
And that's
Because
only
remember-
going from 68% to 70%?
Yeah, it's
Right.
it's a short jump. And the reason why Region 7 feels confident about that is because this year the state of Connecticut put in the 40 million because there's such a shortfall, but next year it's already budgeted that they're putting another $40 million in. So that's why there's less of a worry. The legislators have heard more and more from people, so that was their rationale.
When was that additional funding, made, when was that? How current is that information from the state that they are expecting to put 40 million?
That's within the budget now. So what the governor's biannual budget proposal, it's in there and it has bipartisan support across the board. That's been reported on, and again, just information that Region 7 and others, we're all aware of that. And this year, it was a tussle back and forth for that other 40 million. But that is separate from the budget that's already been proposed and has a lot of support for that $40 million for next year. I see your leeriness. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
That's also, we were talking about $7,000
Right.
difference. It's not
Yeah.
going to solve our issues. Just so I'm clear, we could keep the budget number at 499 and restore band, the counselor, and counselor. And then we could restore tag and white memorial with the savings on salary. Is that right?
I would say
When I
without
crunch
the
numbers?
non-lapsing, we're at $142,000.
Okay.
All right, so if you added up those three items, right? just
Four.
Those four, so you're at 15. Yeah, those four items are under the $142,000.
134,650.
Well, it's good to, those are the top four items that we heard about in public hearing and through letters and things like that. So
So
that's a good base to
yeah,
be
yeah.
at already.
If we could, Superintendent Sis, if you want to present to the board what you would propose based on, I don't know if you have the 60 in it or the 60 out of it.
I don't have it in there yet.
Okay, so without the 60, again, and I've said this before, but our charge as the board is to provide the best education to the students. We hire our superintendent and we hire our administrators to be able to manage and run our school. It's a business, right? And he's the CEO of our company. So for us to go and try to pick on line items throughout the budget is not really our purview. Again, we aren't educated. I mean, not all of us, you guys, there are some educators in the room, so it's different, but we should put heavy reliance on what is being proposed, in my opinion. As the board chair, that's what I would encourage everybody to do. And if you have questions for clarity, like we did when we went through all the detail of the budget, please ask that, right, for clarity.
And, looking at the list, and I agree with that, but those four items that I listed are four of the 5 highest priority,
Mhm.
if I understood the way they were organized.
Yeah, and I would
correctly.
also say again, yeah, I mean,
And
they were in order, right? We asked our superintendent to put them in order of least impact to the students, right? Least to most. So again, we could also look at, is it the school counselor or CJR, right? Because what was also provided to the Board of Finance was the breakdown of mental health support in each school. And there was a void on certain days at New Hartford Elementary and over at Bakerville. So can CGR fill that gap for 35 versus 71.5? Those are things that we should be talking about, right? But I would like to hear from Superintendent Sousa and his proposal to us. But again, I haven't seen this, so we talked, and I didn't want the information before I presented it to the full board.
So given the savings from the bus contract, the positions that I would highly recommend bringing back to our budget, still staying under the 499 or at around that mark, hovering, and a lot of the board members are already going in that direction, is to bring our school counselor back, to bring back the support for mental health for our 39 students on caseload, plus the other 11 throughout, plus all the 200 and plus instances that she is available to support teachers, classroom lessons, and the day-to-day emergencies and things that come up with our students, whether they're getting off the bus and I've described other situations. So that to me is the most paramount. That individual provides, again, the opportunity for us to give to children every single day and our families the support that they need for all three of our schools to have mental health support 5 days a week, someone there every single day, which is critical. So that would be my first recommendation. The second is, without a 0.6 FTE vocal music teacher, the burden of trying to teach general music for one individual across 3 schools, inclusive of travel, we're going into non-efficiencies, and then the absolute devastating effect that would have on our 5th grade and 6th grade band and choral programs. That would be, again, the next. It's right in priority from what I've left here. So those 2 positions alone, I would recommend to bring back into our budget. That is, again, compensated by the savings that we have alone in the budget and the bus contract. So that is what I could absolutely, hands down, recommend to the Board of Education. If there are additional funding sources that we're looking to take and bring back, such as we were talking about excess cost, then we're getting really close to bringing back. We can cover talented and gifted in mathematics, math Olympiads, for example, at that $7,000. If we go further into other savings and we're considering the non-lapsing account, then again, I'm just going up the list of what I feel is most critical. Those 4 elements, we've definitely heard from the community. We definitely know across the board are very important to our students, based on tradition, based on advancing our students' intellectual capabilities through talented and gifted in math Olympiads. Band, we know, we've heard over and over and over again how critical, important that is in our general music program and our school counselor. So with those right off the bat, I would recommend based on the savings from our bus contract. The rest is kind of subjective to what other motions the board would like to take tonight so that we could present a different budget to our Board of Finance. So I'm prepared to pivot any other way. That's what I would speak to based on the savings that the board understands and has in pocket right now.
You said counselor, band, tag, and you said 4. What was the 4th one?
General music, it's 0.6 FTE, school counselor, talented and gifted math Olympiads, and White Memorial.
Oh, okay.
That is a proposal against the 1.
Jeff, I have a question. Jeff, can you hear me?
And that means not touching what's left in the non-lapsing, that's with the Board of Finance.
Yes, that is correct. And I see Deirdre has her hand up, so I want to give her an opportunity.
Jeff,
Deirdre, you there?
can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Is the position that you just mentioned, the council position, is that the grant funded position that we only got for 1 year, then we funded it last year, and now you're proposing to fund it again this year? Even
Yes,
though it was a grant
Yes,
position?
that is correct. Yes, that is correct.
Didn't we discuss at the last board meeting that we were gonna not take on the burden of grant positions once the grant ended, or take the risk of bringing something on, only getting the grant for maybe 1 or 2 years and then having to put the burden of that onto the Board of Ed to end the budget to manage?
That was a point of discussion. It wasn't, again, it's not something I could fully recommend based on the fact that grants are provided so that we can meet the need and then bridge it eventually. So there are other positions or other grants that if they brought in a position, we evaluate them every single year. And if they are not necessary or not needed, then we would not continue to fund that. There is a grant within the budget currently at $50,000 for a position that we are not going to recommend to keep for the following year because it's not funded. So sometimes yes, and other times no. It depends on what the school system currently needs. Sorry, that's probably.
So since prior to my coming to the board, when I was involved with the Bakersfield school closure, we were always looking at trying to cut admin and stay away from the kids. So can we talk, and I'll ask the question, if since the central office admin is leaving as retirement, is there a way to combine her present scope of work with administrations that we're already paying for efficiently? I mean, as far as I understand, without trying to violate any, I thought she was off for a bit of time over this past year. I'm not sure if you hired a replacement during that time or not. Is there a way we can combine that with the student services administrator and eliminate that position altogether and make a permanent cut to our overhead in this district that we don't have to worry about anymore? Because that's been a recurring theme since before I've been on the board, that we just keep, to Deirdre's point, we lop on these layers of people that we have to keep paying for, and they never go away, and they're needed. I'm sure they are, but they add up. So that's my question, if that can be evaluated.
It can certainly be evaluated. It has some technicalities and complexities to it. One position is an at-will employee, very different than a union employee. And as the board knows, when we're in negotiations, to remove an individual from a bargaining unit takes some negotiating. So it can be something that can be looked at for sure. Workload specifically, they are very different. If we're considering giving one person's workload to another person's workload, it can be explored is my answer. My question that I would pose back to Tom and Penny or anybody else that's been on the board is how many other administrative positions have been cut prior to my arrival? I don't know that answer. I've only heard, but I don't know for sure. You guys have lived on the board. How many other spots have been cut? So we're asking to be more and more efficient, but how efficient are we already? I think we're very efficient. So if you can give me some historical, that would help. But also looking at administrative positions, this is a complex issue because one's an at-will and one is not. One is part of a collective bargaining unit. So again, that would take some work to reclassify. The board has the right to do so, but it's got to fit within the legal parameters of what the Department of Labor considers a bargaining unit individual and an at-will individual instead.
You're
So
welcome.
I don't know what the historical is of other administrative assistants or other admin positions, changes, what else has been done in the past.
You want those in there now?
I hate to say,
I'll use that
my
pen.
long tenure on this
Use that
board,
pen to put it in to contain some of the splash of the oil.
for almost 18 years, there has never been any cuts made,
Okay.
And over there, it's got what?
no admin positions.
This one.
I mean, once somebody gets hired by the school, they
2 sticks of butter.
just seem to stay here. They don't.
Right here.
go. And even though.
These aren't sticks though.
Yeah.
They're like,
Have a
that.
habit of coming
One
back
of them.
as part-time employees,
It's because they're needed. That's why they keep them.
not necessarily.
Well, I would respectfully ask you guys to just let me make that decision. So I will
Put
explore.
them on a baking sheet?
that's
or-
what it's saying. Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Explore
How are we
and
gonna cook all
make
this?
it-
I'm reading something wrong. Tell me what's your
Satisfactorily to the operations of
what
our
that says.
school,
That's not a great recipe.
I'll be
Come over here.
need time to explore that because of the complexities of that position. Anyone that belongs to a bargaining unit knows it's not just a quick simple removal of a position.
I realize that, but I do like Tom's suggestion. I think it's worth looking into because I do know while your executive assistant was out on sick leave, the other person in question did fill in for quite a bit, answering phones and stuff.
Absolutely. And before the individual left, there was a lot of preparation before she left to make sure that while I'm out, here's what Jeff is going to need. Here's what has to be prepared. And even then, it's difficult to continue doing your job and then take over another person's job. But there was a lot of training and behind the scenes work that happens. Just for public knowledge, I don't want to put it to bed completely because I absolutely promise you, I will look into the
They
position.
tell you to crack the thing open and take half of the
Right now, this moment, I can't. Because
shell away
it's
and
gonna
stuff
take-
them.
Ask any of our bargaining unit members or anybody that's been in negotiations, you know, it's not just a quick.
Clarification, I wasn't suggesting that it was a they take on extra work for no.
I don't care. I was just teasing.
No.
you.
You got a crab cracker?
Yes, I got that.
He gets this shit and then there's no way to have a crab cracker. In Connecticut, I do.
We, let's stick with that for a minute. Because I
have to cut, like, it doesn't say how much onion to cut up, like.
we should look at, again, if, you know, now we have a retirement without rehiring for that position, if we could use the Director of Student Services Administrator to serve a dual role, right? We know that we would have to make a salary adjustment. We have to have our superintendent look into whether or not, or how that could happen, right? And this is something that we clearly can do before the 25-26 school year, right? And as I look at the other public comment that came out, there was discussion about the IA and the clerical aid. Knowing we can't do anything now for a proposed budget and say that we're eliminating that position because we don't know if we can right away. Should we or could we make a motion that we will direct Superintendent Sousa to look into that? And should that come out, we can balance that against the potential for retaining maybe one of those positions.
I'm okay with that, as not that you guys need my approval. I'm okay with that option, if you want my opinion, as long as we leave tonight with a final number that we could then say it's adopted and moving forward. Otherwise, we're jammed up for Tuesday night, and then we're gonna have to schedule another meeting. Fair enough?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I also agree with the clerical aid position. In thinking about the number of people in the office, we are always concerned with safety, school safety. I believe having the clerical aid back will increase the number of people who are in the office at any given time. So from a security standpoint, I think that's something that we could, or we should bring back. And I think the 60,000 in the non-lapsing account can do that. I think that's something that we should do, especially if you say we have more than that 60,000. We have some coming in anyway. So something to do, something to think about.
I don't like to ever let people go. I think it's bad for morale. And if you can use attrition to save money, which we have that opportunity, I think it's better. Those two positions you're talking about, if I understand correctly, they have more direct contact with the kids as well. The clerical and the IA.
Yeah, I don't think that, right, and I've made the motion tonight, so again, I would ask that, if someone else would like to make a motion, but if you were to eliminate that position, we know that if we were to move the Director of Student Services admin to share, we would have to, again, there would have to be compensation adjustments, going from a union to an at-will employee and taking on a whole nother workload, right? So I don't think that that savings is going to offset being able to keep both of those positions.
You could possibly make a memorandum of agreement with the union of someone
think
that's
that
in
it's out
there.
of-
It's possible.
That's outside of my knowledge.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you can do. And usually a union would allow for something like that to happen if it was going to benefit the employee financially. They're not going to say no to that. I mean, do you agree, Tim?
Yeah, that's 100%.
Question.
Mhm.
Are we, I have one question for Jeff. Can you quickly, in 3 sentences or less, save your time and mine, can you explain CGR position versus school counselor position? Benefits, pros, cons, other?
I'll do my absolute best. Yes. School counselor is available to us 5 days a week. Our employee benefits, everything. Collaborator with all of staff because here every single day. CJR is providing a resource for the community, for parents or family that cannot bring their children to counseling sessions outside of the school day. So one position is directly impacting 22 students. That's CJR. The school counselor position is impacting a lot more of that because they're here Monday through Friday. CJR is not. We utilize that $35,000 just for an extra day of mental health support as a social worker. The other days are directly providing services again to families and students that have the difficulties with scheduling counseling during the school day itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And my last point here is to Tim's point. I'd like to make a motion, but I can't do that without seeing, there's a lot of moving parts to these conversations we just had, and we have no work board and no numbers to say, I make a motion to bring the budget to XYZ at 3 point whatever or whatever percentage. How are we going to do that tonight? Do you have a plan?
I could calculate and provide. I can.
So, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Jeff, how much of the clerical aid and the instructional assistant's duties kind of overlap with the school counselor?
None. No overlap. Clerical aid is at Antolini specifically. It provides, if any of the lead secretaries in the buildings are out, that's a fill-in, provided support there. It's a safety issue, as we talked about, with such a large school and having Oak Hill here as well. And then the day-to-day operations, they're very different. Instructional assistant is a lot of the preparation for our teachers to be able to execute the curriculum with intense efficiency, especially with new curriculum work. So those positions are very different in themselves, but they don't have any overlap with mental health support or anything like that. Those two are non-certified positions versus a school counselor is a certified licensed position. Two different categories.
Are they union positions?
The school counselor is?
No, the clerical and the IA.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No question, just to like confirm numbers. So the IA is 29,000, the clerical aid is 37,000. So 60 grand from the non-lapsing and 7 from the excess would cover their salaries.
Yes.
Can you use that non-lapsing money for salaries?
No, and that was the point that Tim brought up earlier. That would not be against these salaries. That would be against the tuition line for outplacement, which is a volatile line that changes and fluctuates. So it does fit the definition and it's an educational purpose, but the board has to motion to do that.
But the number still.
They still line up and they still work. Yes, absolutely.
So while you're all thinking about what you're going to do, can I read something?
Absolutely.
Okay. After the wonderful 3.5 hours the other night, I wrote this up. Regarding the 25-26 budget, I don't feel that you should cut band, chorus, math Olympiads, tag, or white memorial. We do need to reduce our budget. With special education costs rising, it probably won't get any better. Many of our townspeople can't afford the tax increase that would occur if we proceed with the proposed budget. Many people are struggling to pay for food on their table, heat for their homes, clothes for their children, or even gifts for their children at Christmas and birthdays. We need to think how we can do more without all the extra bells and whistles. While it is nice to recognize our children's promotion to the next grade, how much does this cost? Maybe we need to do without that for a while. Why do we spend money to reward an accomplishment that is part of a natural progression? Do they need to be rewarded for growing up? When they move up to third grade, how much is spent on the buses to transport them to look at the school? There could be an open house in the evening for parents and children to see the school. There are some parents who may not have seen the school and maybe they want to experience it with their child. Do they really need a sixth grade yearbook? If they do, then let's ask parent volunteers to do the yearbook. For many years, this was done. Now we're paying a stipend to have it done. The parents that work with these students have been vetted through our security process. While this can't be done this year, we need to start the process of consolidating our schools. Our enrollment is decreasing. If Oak Hill moved to Bakerville, I think it would be possible to move all the children to Antolini. While this isn't ideal, it would help with all the traveling that some of our teachers do. Or what, we might even have to have some portable classrooms on a temporary basis. We did that at Bakerville and look how long those have been there. They turned out to be just fine. And while it's not ideal, we should talk about consolidating classes. Another item to reduce spending, money spent on a retreat or a meeting. What is wrong with holding a meeting and not serving food or paying a facilitator to lead it? Every penny saved at this point matters. What about cutting back on raises? Not everyone is part of negotiated contracts. If we don't want our children on their devices all the time, why are we providing them with Chromebooks starting in kindergarten? They need the fine motor skills development of pen and paper. They need to develop the muscle memory that occurs when they use pen and paper. Parents at the meeting on Tuesday spoke about ways to get more creative in raising money. Even Deirdre has mentioned that, we should sell ads on the back of the Friday folder.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to point out about this whole declining enrollment that everyone keeps throwing around all the time. So the 10-year average of enrollment is 445 students. Back in 2016, when this whole declining enrollment started, there was 443 students in the schools. So there's 2 students more than 10 years ago when everyone started looking at declining enrollment. That's the 10-year average from our budgets. So, and then our superintendent indicated that next year we may have a banner year because of the 9-month blackout that we all suffered through. So let's hold tight on the consolidation talk, in my opinion.
I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to accept Superintendent Seuss's proposal based on the developments of a savings of $120,000 in the bus contract and $15,000 in the projected administrative assistant's retirement, a total of $135,000 in savings to our 25-26 budget, to remove the eliminations for the school counselor at $71,500, the 5th and 6th grade band at $48,000, the talented and gifted and math Olympiads at $5,000, and the White Memorial at $10,150, for a total of $134,650.
I'll second that. Does that also include the 0.6?
Yes,
Okay.
5th and 6th grade band, yep, 48,000. So again, it removes the eliminations of those 4 items against 2 of the savings that have developed since we put together our original budget and adopted it. Does not account for the ECG if we determined that we wanted to increase it.
I watched them first.
I'm sure it's financial related, but that proposal is essentially the same, roughly the same percentage increase year over year as what we did the last time.
You're talking ECG?
Whatever you just said in terms of like what like with the savings from the bus contract and with Janet's retirement, putting this stuff back in the budget, is that like, where is that leading us with the percentage?
Are we still at
Same.
4.99?
I'm reducing, we have a savings of 135,000 between those 2, and I am reinstating 134,650.
Like, basically in the same area.
$350.
That's what I wanted to just.
But it's still 4.99,
$350 is going to change
right?
the needle on a $10 million budget. So we have a motion by myself and a second by, who was that?
Me.
Penny? Any discussion?
Can we still vote on the use of the non-lapsing after
It could
this?
be a whole separate motion.
Okay.
We're not adopting
All right.
a budget with my motion. We're just making changes.
I think that's great because you still keep it at 499.
Okay, seeing no further discussion. Deirdre, anything from you? Sorry.
Can you just, can you please repeat what you said as far as what you wanted to put back in and
So,
still at 499? I wasn't clear on that.
right, so you have $120,000 savings that has been developed from the bus contract and 15,000 projected for the administrative assistant. That's $135,000. What I'm removing as eliminations is 71,500 for the school counselor, 48,000 for the .6 fifth and sixth grade band, talented and gifted in math Olympiads at 5,000, and White Memorial at 10,150. That total is $134,650. So it's a delta of 350. So the 4.99, I wouldn't anticipate that moving, other than a tenth or a hundredth of a point. Does that make sense, Sergey?
Yes, that makes sense. So the 499 is staying. We just have because of the bus savings, we're able to bring that money back in, is what you're saying, and we're able to add some of those other things back in.
That is correct.
Okay.
Is there any additional discussion?
I would just add, if you could keep it at 499 instead of 5.00, I would use the non-lapsing if you have to.
I'm loving it. I mean, again, if anything, it's going to 4.98 if you're rounding, right? It's the opposite. All right, seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Deirdre?
I'm a yes, as long as it stays at 499.
Say that again?
I'm in favor of it as long as I, again, heard you say it's staying at 499.
Yes, thank you. Okay, that motion passes 8-1-0.
Deirdre, or Tom, I'm sorry.
Okay, the floor is open if anyone else would like to have further discussion or make any further motions.
I'd like to make a motion that we instruct Superintendent Sousa to explore combining the position of administrative assistant at central office with the student services administrative assistant and use those savings to hire back either the instructional assistant or clerical aide previously cut.
I will second. Any discussion?
But there's a difference in, one's part-time and one's full-time.
No, I'll
No.
clarify. They're both part-time, 20 hours a week and 24 hours a week. 20 hours a week for instructional assistant, 24 hours a week for the clerical aide at Intimini.
Oh, I thought he was talking about the Mike's secretary.
That is correct. That is a full-time position for the administrative assistant to the director.
So his motion is to have our Director of Student Services Administrator take on the role for both Director of Student Services and for Jeff. All right, so it would not replace Janet's position. The Janet's position at $74,000 is in the budget. Again, I think we just took 15 of it, so the balance of $60,000 would become available to offset instructional assistant or a clerical aide, right? It can't cover both of them at their current level of part-time employment. And we also need to keep in mind that to have someone leave the union and come to an at-will employee to do both these jobs, there'd be I don't know what we're currently at the union paying our
48,000, if I could remember all the budgetary numbers, 48K.
okay, so if we have a balance of 60,000 that we're leaving there, could be close. Any discussion?
Then are you saying you'd do without an executive assistant?
I would be sharing an executive assistant with the director of student services.
I don't think that's a good idea.
You want to elaborate?
Because I think Janet's position is too important to be shared with the Director of Student Services. I think her position is too involved to have it shared. I think she would be, the new person would be overwhelmed doing 2 jobs instead of 1. Well, let me ask you a different question. Does Janet have enough free time that she could, that person being hired could easily do both jobs at once?
No, she wouldn't be there 5 days a week if that weren't the case.
I don't think it's a good idea.
How were the duties shared when there was an extended absence?
So if the individual is out in advance with knowledge, there is preparation and training. So what that looks like is, hey, before I go, either before work, after work, or we got some time throughout the day, let's get together. Let me show you what needs to be done. And the list can vary on a daily basis. Parents called for this information. I need to get back to them about that. The state reporting needs to be done. I have to work with the data system specialist to provide this. In the meanwhile, she's also juggling, going to do and schedule all of the PPTs, entering all of the work and reports of our staff into Connecticut CT SEDS. So they were balancing and juggling things all over the place, but it does not come without preparation. So in providing board packets, there's a lot that needs to be done there. That's got to be posted online. It's got to be communicated to Paul so he can be ready to record our custodians, to the school to prepare everything. There's a lot of things that go on all of the time. So that's just one example, but it fluctuates. I'm giving just more recent examples. So if she were out on medical, then it's, and I'm picking up a lot of those pieces too. And anybody else in central office that can help when they can help, because I don't want to shortchange payroll. People will come after us. It won't be pretty. And if we don't pay our bills, companies won't like that either. So the bookkeeper, payroll office, all of that, all of those things are very critical, and they will only help if I have means for them to help. Otherwise, it's longer hours and stay after. Someone commented on the overtime. That's, in central office line, that gets used up very quickly in those types of instances if necessary.
So those are both full-time jobs, correct?
They are, yes, sir.
So it'd be unrealistic to ask you to take 2 full-time jobs to turn into 1. Penny, I agree.
I think the intent would be to propose the position to current person who's done it during Janet's absence, right? To Kellyanne, who is the current administrator to the Director of Student Services.
So I don't want to get you in any trouble.
Yeah.
So we can't legally do that. It's got to be,
Oh, I'm sorry, yep. Okay. Yep.
there's more that needs to be done
Yep.
before just making that assumption. We're talking about just 2 positions and
Okay.
combining them right now.
Yep.
Without an individual name.
Okay.
Because then it
All right.
won't look good.
I don't think you should combine them.
Well, I'm going to throw in my 2 cents as someone that works inside of a school. From a teacher perspective, we have in our system, and I think a lot of this is structural because we're not regionalized, but we have a very high administrative to student ratio. We have as many people, if you look at the Regional 7 umbrella, involved in administration as Torrington does with half the number of students. Our student to teacher ratio is pretty typical. So I would ask you to remember what the clerical aid does in the IA as part of this. Because, we wrote a lot of letters about their value as well.
Any additional discussion?
I'm just looking for a way to keep the student impact down, and I see administration as less impactful than these instructional assistant and or clerical aid. So that was the intent of my discussion point.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please
So
signify
what
by.
are we voting on?
We are voting on directing Superintendent Sousa. Right, directing Superintendent Sousa to study or review the opportunity to eliminate the, or I'm sorry, not replace the current administrator for the superintendent once she retires, and to combine the position of administrator for the superintendent and director of student services. And in addition, in using those funds to keep on the IA and clerical aid.
Tom, could that exploration include maybe replacing 2 positions with a 1.5 with part-time? See if that's possible.
I wouldn't suppose that, again, I'm leaving this up to the experts. So I'm putting out an idea that I'm looking to cut some administration in this district that's been on the, discussion points since before I was on this board.
Any additional discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Deirdre?
I'm good.
Good, which one?
Yeah.
In favor or not?
In favor.
Thank you. In favor.
That motion passes 7-0.
So a yes, that's Albert, Russell, Clubs, Fuzzy.
It's quick math. I get it wrong most of the time.
I don't mind you exploring it if you want. I just, again, I don't think it's a good idea. And
We'll let Jeff come back to us. All right?
Yeah, the
Again,
board-
I have another
board-
comment, but I'm not making it in
The
public.
board just motioned it, so I will do
This
as
would
the
not
board pleases.
impact the 499.
Nope,
Okay.
It's a
nothing right
change
now.
within the budget.
Correct.
And again, we won't.
Staying at the 4.
There's no action other than him evaluating it. There's no change until he comes back to us and we have a further discussion. So this is just, again, it opens it for evaluation. Right? Are there any other thoughts? Any other action we want to take on the 25-26 budget?
I'm interested in going back to that motion that you originally had about the non-lapsing account. I'd like to do that before we leave today. So either you motion or I can motion, either one.
Based on the motion we just had, I don't have another motion. Because again, that motion was to have the funds available if we wanted them against the budget. So if you want to make a motion, and again, at this point now, you'd want to just give a motion in what you'd like to do with the funds.
I make a motion to use the approximately $60,000 in the non-lapsing account to help pay for retaining the clerical aid and possibly the instructional assistant.
Just for clarity, the 60K would have to be applied to the variability in outplacement cost. We can't apply it directly to a recurring position. Does the same thing in the budget, but it has to be applied to a variable or a one-time cost.
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay, I was going to say, how should I
Sorry.
I think it's reasonable.
Liz,
You basically want to
Okay.
take the, so if you add that back to the budget, to apply to that, when there's more room in the budget to evaluate what Jeff would want to do with it. Look at
it's the 60K in non-lapsing is going to get applied to offset
60K
outplacement
additional in the
cost.
budget to apply that.
And just to be clear, if we use that 60K, there's still 107,000 left, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, that's good.
But the
We have a motion
60,
by Eric and a second by Penny.
the 60K, they will have to, or Jeff or Tim both will have to go to the Board of Finance to ask him to
I don't think it would affect
We
the
have to inform
4.99.
we have to-
Done here by
we have to-
motion of the board.
Inform the Board of Finance.
That's how.
Inform the board, but this is out of their non-lapsing, not your,
And
no. Are they
I've
combined?
explained a couple of months ago that the statutory language for any non-lapsing accounts have changed. It's just
Okay.
that the Board of Finance hasn't followed up with that or did not know. So I brought that information to light a couple of months. I don't remember.
I know you mentioned it
Yeah.
before, but I thought you still had to go to Carrie or to the Board of Finance for
No.
that original account.
If we motion it here and it's for educational expenses,
Okay.
we're good to go.
Gotcha.
I would just like to see, instead of doing the 60, just do the 66 back into the budget and then, or back into the budget so that we can add both of those positions back with no issue.
But you can't use it for salaries.
Well,
or
we'll-
recurring
Right,
costs.
we'll put it
Oh,
back
right,
into the, we'll
right.
put it back into the budget for other things and then put these two positions back in.
That would reduce the 107 to 101.
Right.
But what about that seven, come on, that seven, or we can consider that $7,000 excess, right, excess?
Excess
And then
cost
that would
grant.
still keep it at 60, right? Doesn't matter.
I think there's still, I think it might get rescinded, it might change, it may.
What's on the table is this 60 or 60. Out of the non-lapsing account and back into the budget to cover.
But I have to know what exact the wording that you want. That's what I'm asking for. I understand what you're saying, but to repeat the wording so that the words.
I'm gonna say, just give it a few minutes and we'll give you exactly what's out there, I think, based on the conversation, because it may change if I gave you what it is
Can I
right
just
now.
simplify it and just say, motion to bring the money back into the budget and then period? That's it?
We have to apply it, right? So we just have to say where it's being applied to,
To tuition.
Okay.
right?
So apply
To
tuition.
outplacement, tuition, outplacement, whatever. we want.
All right, so my
But I
motion,
think Tim is offering
yeah,
a modification to it. So
yeah, I would support that modification. So should I? All right, I would like to amend, well, I don't have a motion
No,
yet,
just
so.
come up with a new motion.
I'd like to make a motion to add $66,000 into the budget for tuition reasons
from the non-lapsing.
from the non-lapsing account. Anything else?
Second.
All right, so Liz, the motion, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to approve applying $66,000 from the non-lapsing account against outplacement tuition and use the savings to remove the elimination of the IA position at $29,000 and the clerical aid at $37,000. So we have a motion by Eric. Did we get a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Tim. Now, that doesn't address what Megan was bringing up.
And that, well, if it doesn't come back, if and when that money comes back, that can go back into the non-lapsing.
You can only do it at the end of the year if there's a budget savings. So what that does is that'll take the non-lapsing account and bring it down to $156,000. Is that accurate? $155,000. 155.
The whole thing.
So it's 114 plus 107, right, is 221, less 66.
Minus the 60, 66,
66.
minus the deficit, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the 56,
Minus 55.
55.
that doesn't make sense. Something
Okay.
around there. No, it's,
They were both 100.
This is what we did here.
we had 107 and 114, so that's $221,000.
221. Minus the two
We're
amounts.
banking 55 for this year's deficit.
Yeah.
Correct?
And that left you with how much?
59K for non-lapsing.
So take the 59 plus the money from this year. from the
59 plus,
24 audit,
59 plus
23
101.
audit.
Plus 101? Okay. So that's
No.
160, that doesn't make sense.
Doesn't
either.
make sense.
I'm,
Try not to use my phone.
I'm removing the 55 for the deficit, which leaves 59K. So from 59K added to the
Hold on.
other 107.
Hold on. Your deficit numbers.
Yeah, this is from this year. We're going to be,
So we said we had 114. Hold on, we had 114. We said the deficit, we were going to remove 60. So that means that the deficit number was going to be, we're going to move 60, leaving $54,000 for the deficit. All right, so we left $54,000 for the deficit in there.
Mhm.
That's removing 60. Then we had 107, and we're taking
6 from that,
6 from that,
leaving 101.
in 101.
Yep.
So total, you've got 155 left, but that includes the deficit,
Yeah,
right? So we only
Yes.
have $101,000
that's,
left.
that's accurate.
That's right.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
Everyone at home follow along? Yep, that's correct.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm for this, but we are kicking the can down the road a little here, and we aren't always going to get a lifeline like we did with the bus contract this year. And we need to remember this because we're going to have to look at some long-term structural, systemic things, I think, to keep this from happening. We got lucky this year with the bus contract, I think, but that lifeline won't come next year.
Well, you're
That's a
right. And
long
again,
contract.
We have a negative this year, but next year we have a +4.
Yes. -1 +4.
Well, again, this motion isn't going to preclude my previous motion of looking to consolidate administrative costs.
That's correct. It does not. That motion already passed.
I guess if there's any year where we should kick the can down the road, it might be this one, considering all the comments from the town.
Yeah, I agree, but we need to plan it long-term.
I have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Is there any further discussion?
Deirdre,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I don't think that we should be taking money from the non-lapsing account to fund this at all. So I'm not in favor of this. And my biggest question is what's going to happen next? We're not planning for the future. What's going to happen for next year? Where's the money going to come from for next year and the year after? And we're going to have a higher increase in special education as we keep doing every single year. The money in the budget is going to keep going up. So I want to know what the plan is for the next couple of years. I think we're being fiscally irresponsible by taking the money out of that account. So I'm definitely not in favor of that.
Okay, thank you.
It's not going to look very good when we have $200,000 in an account, yet we cut 2 very important positions in the school system. Visually, that does not look good. The town is not going to appreciate that. And by town, I mean the voting public.
Is there any further discussion?
The money that's in this non-lapsing account, like when you have to get this underground storage tank problem going down the road, that money will go towards that, correct?
It can.
Yeah, because that's 250,000 per tank. And we have what, 4 tanks?
Correct.
So that's $1,000.
Yeah, that's $1 million.
$1 million,
$1
sorry.
million. And that would have to be a discussion, Board of Finance and town to, that would be a bonded project. That's
Right, but still, it would help. I agree, we're kicking the can down the road. We have to make cuts this year. We can't keep borrowing and saying we have this money in the non-lapsing account, let's use it. Pretty soon, we're not going to have any money left for that real emergency.
I just feel like every year we're taking away from regular education for the sake of special education, which I know we have to do, but there needs to be some other plan that we can look into, whether it's just regionalizing special education or something along those lines to limit that cost. Otherwise, we're just going to hurt the regular education every single year to the point where it's like total detriment, and they'll be part of the special education program as well.
Keep in mind, some of these outplaced special education students will move on to Region 7, and they will move on out of this school system, and that could help us in the future.
If they go to Regional 7, though, we'll still have half that cost
Right,
in the town budget.
because we still have to, we're still part of Region 7, so we still have to provide for them until they age out or we no longer have to pay for them.
It won't be in our budget, but it'll be in the town budget.
Right. One way or another, we're paying for those children.
And that's fine, but it just wouldn't be in our budget, and we're worried about our budget.
Tim, I agree with you, and I think when you look at our, the number of students that receive special ed services, it's a high number compared to state averages, and we need to examine that.
Good schools attract people from other towns to come in here, and we're a good school system. That's why we have a higher number of special education students.
Jeff, can you, to Tim's point, the instructional assistant and clerical aid, if you had to balance the two, on which side it falls on, would you fall under more special ed or more regular ed? Who benefits more from those two positions?
Both, all students do, but regular ed is probably the greater benefactor, but curriculum is for all.
Right.
And clerical aid, is for all as well. But if I had to select what side it would fall on, it would be regular education.
So, not that I don't want taxes raised, but again, that's really where you're looking at. If you wanted to not touch this non-lapsing account and raise the 4.99 up, that's where you'd have to go and raise. I don't know what $66,000 does to that 4.99, but if you're not going to touch that non-lapsing account, that's where it'd have to come from. If unless you could find some savings in your consolidation of overhead.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion to use $66,000 in a non-lapsing account to offset outplacement cost to fund the IA and clerk assistant? All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Deirdre?
I'm opposed.
Deirdre, I'm sorry, we didn't hear you. Go ahead.
I am opposed to the vote.
Opposed. Thank you.
That motion passes 5-4-0.
One, two, three.
Myself.
Here again.
I got someone
Plus
online.
Deirdre.
That's right.
All the motions should add up to 9 today. I hope. 5-4-0, it passes. So with all those changes, can you give us a new total? Should be $350.
That's all it is. Yeah. So the net difference is.
I mean, I guess I should start. Does anybody have any additional actions on the 25-26 budget? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adopt a budget, a 25-26 budget for $10,324,676? That is a 4.99% increase, maintains what we had, and send to the Board of Finance. A motion by Tom, second by Frank. Is there any discussion? What was that number again?
10, 3, 2, 4, 6, 7, 6.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed? Deirdre?
Can you please repeat the motion? I'm sorry, it's hard to hear you guys.
The motion is to send a 25-26 budget, adopt the 25-26 year budget at the value of $10,324,676. That maintains a 4.99% increase to the Board of Finance.
Okay,
Yea or no?
yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 8-1-0. Okay, as today's a special meeting, that concludes our discussion on the 25-26 budget. The next item on the agenda is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Penny at
Second.
7:26.
7:26.
7:26. Did we get a second?
Second.
Tim.
Penny and Tim. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you all again. Thank you all for coming down here at last minute.